Hey everybody, welcome back for another shooting edition of Shoreviewken. Today we're taking a look at a game that is typically held in pretty high regard, and a game that takes what the original did and jumps the shark in shooter terms. It's Giga Wing 2 for the Sega Dreamcast, which was released in arcades in 2000 and on the DC in 2001, and while it was published by Capcom, it was once again developed by Takumi, a developer that was comprised mostly of former Toaplan employees, so it has a pretty strong shooter pedigree. It also has a story that's pretty incomprehensible, which is a common theme with shooters heading into the 2000s. It used to be that just having some alien invaders was enough to warrant a shooter, but eventually more and more convoluted stories started to be introduced, and honestly, who the hell cares? Just point me at the thing that needs to blow up and don't bog me down with needless story points. Before going too much into detail, I will say that I do not like this game as much as the original. The first game felt like a great shooter that had a cool little gimmick in the form of the reflector force to add a little something extra to the gameplay. This game feels like the exact opposite of that. It's a game built around using the reflector force, and solid shooting action is more of an afterthought. And don't get me wrong, this is still a very enjoyable game, and I know it's the point that its gameplay is way over the top, but for me it's pretty much impossible to play this game as just a straight shooter. I find myself constantly having to rely on the reflector force and super bombs just to make it through each stage. It's a bit irritating, actually. I'd like to just do some straightforward shooting here and there, but the sheer saturation of the screen with bullets makes that almost impossible, so I don't enjoy this game quite as much as I would like. It is still pretty fun, and there are a ton of ships to choose from, 5 to start with, and 5 more to unlock, but gameplay-wise, it's just not enjoyable as the first game, and I would say the graphics and sound pale in comparison as well. I loved the beautiful 2D sprite work of the first game, but Giga Wing 2 drops that, and instead goes for a 3D rendered look, which I don't really care for in my shooters, and the soundtrack, for me, lacks the excitement of the original, which had some high-energy metal and techno tracks, which I liked a lot, but this one, not as much. So while it is an enjoyable game with decent graphics and sound, it fails to surpass the original in every area, unless, of course, you prefer the excessive bullet hell style, in which case you'd probably prefer this game over the first. Me, though, I'm more of a shooter purist. So this is a good game, but not a great shooter in my opinion. If you're a shooter fan, I'd recommend picking up the first game, but if you're more a fan of bullet hell and not too picky about your shooters, this one will do just fine. It is a very expensive game at the moment though, but the Japanese version is much cheaper at between 80 and $100 a pop versus the 300 or so for the North American version. If you've got some money to burn and time to kill, Giga Wing 2 might just be for you. But yeah, Giga Wing 1, that's the game to play, in my humble opinion, of course.